Whoa, Kitty! Look who's here! All our fans are out there! I did a video on this knife a little while back. It's my Shatton Morgan Scout knife from 1994. It's a, 4-blade Scout knife. Unfortunately, it's missing a bail, or a clevis, or a shackle, whatever you want to call it. But it had this really funky looking can opener on it. And I mentioned in that video that can opener, this style can opener, was a type of can opener that was used widely by the Utica Knife Company. And in that video I showed you this knife, which is actually from the Iroquois Knife Company, which is a brand of knives that was made by Utica. So it's basically just one of the trademark names that Utica used. And you see a very similar can opener. I also mentioned in that video that these knives were very similar to the Utica made Girl Scout knives. And so what I thought I would do now is show you this knife compared to a variety of Utica made Girl Scout knives that I have. Now, I really don't have a lot of Girl Scout knives. Matter of fact, currently I have 4. At one time I had 5. I gave one of them away. It was in really sad shape. But these are the Girl Scout knives I have, and this one here is not by is not by Utica. It's actually by Colonial. It's their 100th anniversary knife. As you can see, the build quality on this was, to me, it was substandard. You can see there, Colonial. Maybe you can't see there. Colonial from 2012. You see the blade edge there. Girl Scouts 1912 to 2012. And then the 100th mark in the trefoil there, as well as here on the handle. Pack of wood handles and your common blades that you find on a 4-blade cam knife. Kind of a satin finish all around. Looks like it's all stainless steel throughout. That's the one knife I have from Colonial that is a Girl Scout knife. Now, Utica is pretty well known for making Girl Scout knives, and I should say Utica Cutmaster. Cutmaster is a trademark of Utica. Utica Knife Company may have actually had the Cutmaster trademark as early as the 1940s or so, but they really didn't start using it, at least on Girl Scout knives, until the mid-1950s, so after World War II. But that's when you see a change between Utica and Cutmaster, at least when it comes to Girl Scout knives. But it's just a change in trademark. It's not a change in the company making it. They're all made by Utica, and that's the case with the 3 knives you see here. Let's move the Shatton Morgan over to the side. Let's try and get these in order too. Okay, so these are 2 Utica knives, and this is a Cutmaster knife. And what I'm going to try and do is go over those real quick. First, I'll explain how they're similar to this knife and how they differ from this knife. And then I'll go into some specifics on the Girl Scout knives. Now, before I go into great detail on the Utica knives, let me explain that they were not the only company that made Girl Scout knives, but it does seem that they made the bulk of the Girl Scout knives. Remington also made them, as well as Ulster Divine, and then just plain old Ulster. The Presto Knife Company also, Imperial also made some Girl Scout knives, but they did not make the 4-bladed kind. Kingston probably also made them around 1945, but again, not very many of them. And they were making a different style of Girl Scout knife. And Robeson also made them for a very short length of time. And then finally, Imperial started making them sometime around the 1950s, 1960s. But again, they weren't really making the 4-bladed kind. It was other knives that they were making until later. For the most part, Utica made the bulk of the 4-bladed Scout knives for the Girl Scouts. They also made quite a few 2-bladed Scout knives that had a spear blade and a pin blade. Now, as I mentioned, the Utica Girl Scout knives also have the same style of can opener that I showed you on the Shatton Morgan knife. And typically when you talk to people who are collecting Girl Scout knives, they will usually refer to this as a saddle style can opener or an old style can opener, because the other kind of can opener you see on Girl Scout knives is the modern style can opener or the safety can opener. And Utica was kind of late to the game adopting this because, well, after World War II, Imperial had a patent on this, so Utica continued to use the old style can opener until the patent wore off. So Utica started actually using this style can opener around 1953 or 54, somewhere around then. And that is also the time that Utica was no longer stamping their knives Utica. Well, it is stamped Utica, but it is stamped Cutmaster, and under that Utica, New York, and then USA. So that's a big difference between the older and the newer knives. The older ones, the Utica ones, will have the old style can opener. Most of the, as far as I know, all of the Cutmaster ones will have a new style can opener. They kind of swapped at the same time. But as far as the Shatton Morgan goes, what you'll notice right away is a difference in size. They both have that slender build, but the Shatton Morgan is 3 5/8 inches long, whereas most Utica Girl Scout knives are going to be 3 3/8 inches long. So they're built on the same size frame that you find on a Cub Scout knife, or that you find on the Junior Scout frame that is used by the Case Junior Scouts. Now, there are a couple Utica knives out there that are 3 3/4 inches or 3 5/8 inches long, so they'll be about the size of this knife, the Iroquois Scout knife. However, those are going to be on a Cutmaster. They'll say Cutmaster on the blade edges here, because they were made in the 1960s, maybe even later than that, the 1970s and such. And they're using a larger frame that was about the same size as what you have here, the 3 5/8 inch Shatton Morgan, and that might be where these were come from. I don't know. I have a feeling it's closer to here, because those later frames would have the new safety can opener because they were Cutmaster knives. This one is very lazy. And you see here the tang stamp for the Cutmasters is like so: Cutmaster, Utica, New York, USA. Whereas the ones for the Utica knives, they have a totally different tang stamp. Obviously, it'll say Utica, and then underneath that it'll say featherweight, and then patent applied. And later on, they even add a little bit more information, unless it's hidden underneath the frame there. It'll say, if you can make it out there, I might have to take a picture, but it'll say Utica featherweight patent APP, and then I'll have the number 33 underneath there. I'm not sure if you can see all that there, but there is a 33 under the where it says patent applied. So that's the other things you'll see on the Utica knives versus the Cutmaster knives. Now, as for when the knives came out, some sources say that Utica started making scout knives in 1933 for the Girl Scouts, and they continued to do that all the way through 1989. However, other information is kind of conflicts with that, because one of the things is the it might be that the trademark for featherweight, which you see on the knife here where it says featherweight, and that was issued to the Girl Scouts in 1933. But some believe that because of the shield on these knives and stuff, it probably dates the knives more closely to around 1937 that they started, that Utica actually started making knives for the Girl Scouts of America. So sometime between 1933 and 1937 is the safe bet, is to say somewhere between 33 and 37, Utica started making knives for the Girl Scouts. And that's based off of the shield that you see here. And this is the silver tone shield with the eagle with the letters GS above it. Now, at the time, Utica was using two different shields for Girl Scout knives. This is the one that they put on the four-bladed knives. And then they had the contract for the two-bladed pen knives, which were also marked Utica featherweight, but they had the spear blade and a secondary pin blade, and those had a shield that was just in the same shape as the trefoil, but it just had the letters GS on there for Girl Scouts. So that was a big difference between the four-bladed camp style knife versus the two-bladed featherweight light knife, or whatever you want to call it, the pen knife. Now the thing with the pen knives, I really need to get one. They also have the same style of clevis on them that the four-bladed knives do. So at first glance, you might look at them and think that they're the same thing. But the big difference is two blades and just the GS shield, which was also a silver shield, or four blades with the eagle shield and the GS on there. So this was the higher end knife, obviously. Now, both of these Utica knives are similar in some ways, but they're also different in other ways, beyond just the difference in the tank stamp. You see this one with the Utica patent applied and everything else. As far as I know, and every other source that I've ever read, no one knows exactly what the patent was that was applied for, and if it was ever actually issued. But there's a couple other minor differences between these two, besides also the style of handle that you see on there. Now, this is the most common handle you see on these old Utica Girl Scout knives, the black and green mottled handle, and it's a type of celluloid known as, what was it called? Pyrohn or something like that. Pyrohn, Pyrohn, celluloid. That's what the this green and black was called, and I think this is called the same thing. And if you notice, there is definitely a difference in there. This has, I'm going to say, lengthwise stripes running through it of a celluloid-like material. Notice it's different shades of green, but it's running lengthwise, these stripes. There's another one that has these stripes going cross-hatched across here, so crosswise, going up and down, as opposed to the length of the knife. And these are fairly uncommon. They're also earlier ones. The one with the stripes running lengthwise is more common than the ones where the stripes are running up and down, or, you know, the same direction as the stripe on the bolster. So that's something else to look at in these knives, is the way the handles are made, because this is the fairly common one, even for the older knives. And this handle material was used from around 1937 all the way up into 1952 or so. This one was really used on earlier models and then just kind of disappeared. So this might have actually been the first few years or something of that nature. I don't know. And at one time, like I mentioned, they had the stripes running in the opposite direction. So that's pretty cool too. But another thing you can look for on these knives to determine if it's a newer knife or an older knife is right there in the center, if you can see it, in the shield of the bird. Notice the difference? This one has a pin or a rivet going right through the center of the shield, and that's because these earlier knives had a pinned shield, and later on they were just glued in place. And so that's another thing to look for. Also, there are a couple of them out there that do not have the long pull, and I'm not sure the significance of that. The long pole actually does carry over into some of the older Cutmaster knives, but the this one here, as you can tell, has the just the regular nail nick as opposed to a long pole. This one probably dates from around 62, 63. We'll get into that one in a little bit, but I think you're seeing a little bit of a difference there. This one here, is near mint, and it is one of the later ones. I actually have the box for it, so I know a little bit more information on this one. And this is definitely post World War II, probably made in the very late 40s or early 50s, obviously before 1952, because it still does have the old style can opener, and it still does say Utica versus Cutmaster. But one of the other interesting things you'll see on this knife versus the earlier one, notice the swedge here, but there is actually no swedge on the back side here. And that kind of dates this knife to, you would think, during like a Depression era time, but that's not really the case. This is actually post World War II. And the earlier one here, with the long pole, has the swedge here as well as along the back here, if you can make that out a bit. Notice the swedge at the top of the blade there. And that is one of the signs that this knife is also older, the swedge as well as the pin. So I'm not sure which disappeared first, the pin or the complete swedge, but over time the back side swedge disappeared on the knife, as well as the pin on the shield. So those are a few differences that you'll see on this. So this knife most likely is from the late 30s or early 40s, definitely pre-World War II, whereas this one is post-World War II, but before 1953. Okay, let me scoot things around so we can get everything in the picture here. And then this last knife is the one I have from probably around 1962. And the way you can tell that, first of all, like I mentioned, it has Cutmaster on the blade. So this is, they started using that around 53, 54. It has the new style can opener, and it is still marked can opener. And they kept it marked can opener for the longest time. But it also has the minty green colored handle under a clear celluloid cover, and then the gold shield as opposed to the silver shield. All of this dates this knife to a much later time. The gold shield followed the silver shield, and the gold shield showed up in the mid 1950s and continued to be used on Utica knives until around 1965. At that time, around 1965, they changed to a green plastic handle, and they use a gold shield, but it'll just say GS on it. It will no longer have the eagle. And then in when was it? Around 1981, I think, they go to the, is it 81? Yeah, 1981. They drop the GS letters and they go for the three-face trefoiled shield, where you see the three Girl Scouts profile in the trefoil, and that takes place in 81. So from 81 to 89, you'll see Utica made or Cutmaster made Girl Scout knives, but they will not have this clear cover. This clear cover was the first one they used. Then they went to a green plastic, and then after the green plastic, they went to a lighter green plastic. And so basically, I have about 3 more Utica Girl Scout knives to pick up in the 4-blade version, and then I also got a couple that I need to pick up in the 2-blade versions. But in any case, I'll give you some more information in a chart during the slideshow of these knives, but figured that pretty much covers my Utica Girl Scout knives. So stick around for some slides. Let me take just a second to thank you once again for dropping by and spending a few minutes here at Knife Chats with the Pious. I really do appreciate it, and I do appreciate any comments that you leave. So please remember to give me that thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the next episode is up and running. Thanks again for dropping by. Really do appreciate your time here.